Thank you, Ed, for the introduction. My name's Donna, and I'm also in Melbourne. I'm about 2 suburbs north of Ed, also working from home, as many of us are. And today I will be talking to you about how to plan a design thinking workshop, and a little about how to facilitate one. Just briefly, I'll cover off what design thinking is, and then we'll get into the guts of it. So design thinking is a really popular approach to designing products and services. It's really collaborative, it focuses on the user, and aims to identify a range of solutions, not just one solution to run with. As it's really collaborative, a lot of the idea generation work for a workshop a lot of the idea generation for design thinking happens in workshop form, putting people in a room together, virtually or not, to work together to come up with ideas, solve problems, etc. So today I'm going to talk about how to plan a workshop and a little about facilitating. The way we'll structure today is I'll talk a little about how you might determine workshop goals. Then I'll do a chunk on workshop structure and a bit about activities. That chunk I'll set for like 30 minutes, but I'll talk for like the first 15 and then do questions and answers. I'll then talk a little about facilitation and managing people. Same again, a bit of content, then Q&A. So as you have questions, type them into the question box, and either at the end of those sections or when I see somewhere that's a natural pause, I'll answer questions in a bundle. I won't go through and do yes, but I'll go, okay, I've seen a bunch of things on this. So yeah, please do ask questions. I've left a chunk of time here to be able to react and ask your questions, not just talk at you for an hour. But I'll start with setting goals of workshops. The absolute success of any workshop, I mean, the absolute success of anything we do revolves around really understanding why we're doing it and what we want to get out of it. We, in most things, don't do this well enough, but it's, you know, it's almost a truism that you have to figure out where you're going to know whether you got there or not. Importantly, if you're going to be involved in a design thinking workshop, don't facilitate your own. Even before any goal setting, if you attempt to facilitate something that you're involved in, participants in the workshop won't trust that you're not, you know, pushing your own agenda. If you need to have something happen via design thinking and you would like to run it as a workshop, get somebody else to facilitate it. Perhaps do swapsies or something, but don't do your own. It just, when I've seen this done, you can always tell the facilitator has their head in the space. Even, you know, experienced facilitators don't attempt to do their own stuff. So to figure out what the purpose, what the goal is, here's some questions that you might ask. Some really obvious ones like what you want to achieve out of it, figuring out like what the type of workshop is, whether it's something where you want to do a bunch of kind of discovery in the room, whether you want to get people aligned, whether you want to actually generate design out of it. Asking the person hiring you what they imagine will happen, how would they like people to feel, what would you hope that people said afterwards, and very, very importantly, what will they do with the outputs from the workshop, and how will they use those? Design thinking workshops at the moment have a little of a bad name because they can easily turn into design theatre. And design theatre is when we put people together and put a bunch of post-it notes on the wall, virtual or otherwise, and we do a bunch of kind of idea generation, and it's really fun and crazy and great and high energy, and then nothing happens out of it. So we don't want to be doing those. They're a waste of people's time and they're disrespectful of people's expertise. So we want to make sure that the outputs from a workshop are used for something. Be really clear what's happening there. I have 2 cats. The other one just walked with his tail across the top of the screen, but they're quite fascinated today by you all. Also find out how the workshop fits with other work, and particularly whether participants in the workshop will have been in a workshop like this before, and what their experience is. Once you've got an idea of like what those goals are, think about whether design thinking is the right way to do it. A design thinking workshop is really good for getting people to work together. It's good for getting really creative ideas for complex problems. It's good for generating practical, creative ideas for topics that can be understood. I'll contrast that in a second. And it's good for getting a group to collectively decide on next steps. It's not good for everything. A design thinking workshop isn't good for really solving very, very complex problems. Problems that have kind of really multifaceted inputs, large societal problems. The thing that happens if you try to solve these with design thinking is you just kind of skim the surface. You can't get to real proper resolution in a workshop form. They're also not good for problems where it's hard to understand the inputs, where it's hard to understand the world. Again, you'll just get really shallow solutions. And a design thinking workshop isn't right for kind of doing detailed, nitty-gritty solution design. Sometimes you've just got to sit down and work through detail, and that's, putting people together in a room to do that isn't the right way. I get asked to do workshops all the time where I'm like, no, that's a traditional piece of design work or a traditional piece of analysis and consulting work in which we might put people together occasionally, but we're not going to try to solve it in a room in a design thinking workshop. And I know I'm being picky about the terminology, but the structure I'm going to show you in a minute is really about this particular style of workshop. So really figure out whether it's the right way to do it before diving in. So the guts of today is all about setting a structure for a design thinking workshop, and working and understanding what might happen in each piece of it. My workshops have fairly consistent overall structure, though what we do in each of these sections varies wildly depending on our goals and the activities we choose. So none of my workshops actually look alike at all. I don't walk into a workshop and it just looks exactly the same cookie cutter, but they always have the same shape, and I'll go through each of these parts of the workshop. So the beginning is always a warm-up. I'll talk about this again when I talk about working with people, because icebreakers, warm-ups, I call them warm-ups because we're warming up a room, we're not trying to break the ice between people, can also have a bad name because they're often done quite badly. What you want to do in this section is, the idea is that you want to get people ready to work during the workshop itself. So you want to get them ready to do the activities that you do later. You want to get them feeling comfortable with each other. So instead of doing a warm-up activity that doesn't necessarily fit with the goals of the workshop, something that's kind of abstract or get to know you, find a workshop warm-up that matches with the goals of the workshop itself and starts building the skills that people might need later on. So if you're going to be doing sketching later on, I'll talk about sketching again in the people section, you could get people starting to sketch now. If you're going to get people to make models with Lego bricks or craft, do something in the warm-up that gets them working those skills. Also make introductions part of the workshop. There's nothing more boring than going around the room having people introduce themselves. The only thing that's happening there is people are going, oh my God, it's my turn soon, it's my turn soon, what am I going to say about myself? Okay, rehearse. Nobody's actually listening to each other anyway. And it's a very low energy way to get introductions. So I usually get people to do something creative or something fun, and then when they present their work back to the group, they do a very fast intro, and then it turns into a very fast intro. It doesn't turn into a, this is me and this is my role and I've been doing blah, 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 blah. So good warm-ups actually do warm up the room. The next part